Chapter 1. Ports, Spreadsheets, and the Mundane Start. When you graduated with a degree in international logistics, the world looked like nothing more than a grid of coordinates. You mastered English, Russian, and French, but more importantly, you mastered the soul-crushing details that drive others mad. Every acronym on a customs declaration, every stamp on a bill of lading. You started at a logistics firm in a port city. At first, you were just an ordinary guy with an Excel sheet. You shipped rice to Sudan and construction materials to Syria. You quickly realized that the protagonist of this business is never the cargo, it's the illusion of compliance. You learned how to use the most precise language within complex bureaucracies to hide the filthiest truths. Chapter 2. The First Alienation of Money, the Premium of Law. The shift happened in a hotel bar in Dubai. A man in a tailored suit told you his client needed farming tools. You understood immediately. When that cargo was delivered to a restricted zone in the Congo, you weren't just transporting steel, you were transporting possibility. The payout was 5 times your annual salary. That was your first encounter with the primary trait of money, its ability to instantly erase moral friction. When there are enough zeros on the check, the articles of international law become as fragile as scrap paper. You quit and went freelance. You registered a dozen shell companies in Panama and Cyprus, businesses with no employees, only mailboxes. You mastered the ultimate password, the EUC, End User Certificate. This paper is the magic trick of finance. It tells the world that the 5,000 AK-47s you bought are for the Nigerian police. With a bribe to the right general and a legitimate stamp on that EUC, the moment the plane leaves the ground, the cargo's destination becomes a mystery of a parallel universe. Chapter 3. The Physicality of Wealth. Hard currency in the jungle. You bought your own plane, an old Soviet bird gathering dust in an Eastern European hangar. Your pilot, Sergei, drank vodka for breakfast, but he could blind land on a muddy strip in pitch darkness. You now controlled the entire supply chain. In the most extreme realms of finance, digital numbers are useless. At 3 a.m., you stand at the cargo door in the heart of the jungle. The smell of smoke and rot is overwhelming. The militia leader, wearing sunglasses in the dark, doesn't have a bank account. He throws you a heavy canvas bag. It's not USD, it's gold dust. Heavy, yellow powder clawed out of mines by prisoners of war. You weigh it on a handheld scale. In that moment, money returns to its primitive roots. It is weight. It is purity. It is the raw plunder of resources. This money is scorching hot. It smells of blood. You realize you aren't just a delivery man anymore. You are the pacemaker of the war. Without your logistics, these conflicts couldn't sustain themselves for a week. That sense of control is more intoxicating than the gold itself. Chapter 4. Liquidity, the lubricant of corruption. You began to navigate the customs offices of the world. You learned to precisely evaluate the price of every soul. A junior officer is worth a Rolex. A port director is worth his son's 4-year tuition at an American Ivy League school. You pay it gladly because the third trait of money is it is the world's most effective skeleton key. You made the cargo dance across the map. It vanished from the stockpile of one country, rested briefly in the warehouse of another, and finally faded into the bush. You sat on crates of landmines eating expired canned tuna, watching warlords surrounded by child soldiers quote philosophy. They called you the Rainmaker because you brought the iron rain that could level cities.
You moved to heavy hardware, SAM missiles, main battle tanks. You labeled tanks as heavy industrial bulldozers and helicopters as spare auto parts. You bought a penthouse in Monaco with a go bag under your bed containing $500,000 in raw diamonds and 4 passports. In your world, diamonds are more real than cash. They can't be frozen, and they take up very little space when you're running for your life. Chapter 5. The Final Destination. The state is the ultimate buyer. You thought you were playing the law until a man who looked like a professor intercepted your life in a secret room in Vienna. It was the CIA. They didn't want to arrest you, they wanted to lease you. The most ironic trade of money appeared. It eventually flows toward the entity with the greatest capacity for violence. You became a state-sanctioned smuggler. The Pentagon wired money to your shell company in Delaware. That company bought obsolete Soviet weapons from Albania. Your planes flew them to Jordan, where they accidentally fell off the truck and crossed the border into a war zone. You were still committing felonies, but this time, the government was cutting the checks. You fell into extreme paranoia. You checked your car for bombs every morning and swapped burner phones every week. You earned enough to last 10 lifetimes, but you never dared to sit with your back to the door. You realized money can't buy safety. It only buys a higher grade of fear. Chapter 6. The liquidation of a scapegoat, the expensive loose end. Politics are fickle. When new peace treaties are signed, you transform from an asset into a liability. The final and most ruthless trait of money revealed itself. When your utility expires, your wealth becomes the evidence that convicts you. At an airport in Thailand, as tactical teams slammed you onto the cold floor, you saw the politicians on the news calling you the merchant of death. These were the same men who had employed you, utilized you, and accepted your bribes for a decade. You didn't just transport their weapons, you transported their unspeakable sins. You were locked in a cell no larger than your first office cubicle. Your billion-dollar fortune was seized, frozen, and legally carved up by the very governments that arrested you. You thought you controlled the money, but you were just a slightly more expensive consumable in the war machine. You lie on an iron cot, listening to the cough of the prisoner next door. You've paid your debt to the world. The screams that haunted your dreams have finally gone quiet because you have nothing left to lose. This is the true cost of the business. Money gave you the illusion of ruling the world, only to smile and hand you over to the gallows the moment you needed it most.